You know that strange, quiet ache you feel when you stumble across an old photo. Maybe it's a Polaroid from 1994, the edge is slightly curled, or just the flicker of a memory involving a bulky television and the distinct static of a VCR. You can recall the exact smell of a Blockbuster on a Friday night, that mix of carpet cleaner and excitement, with crystal clarity. Yet if I asked you what you had for breakfast this morning, you'd probably have to pause and really think about it. Why does your brain archive a moment from 30 years ago in high definition, while your daily life feels like it's being stored in a low-resolution cache? It's easy to joke that we're just getting old, but there's something deeper happening here, a specific kind of psychological wiring that belongs only to you. If you're someone who feels like you're constantly living with one foot in the analog past and one foot in the digital present, you're not alone. In fact, millions of people who grew up on the cusp of the internet age are experiencing this exact same memory glitch. You aren't just remembering a year. You're remembering the last time life felt unrecorded, unfiltered, and entirely yours. And honestly, it's time we talked about why that is, because it reveals something beautiful about how your mind actually works. Let's look at why you're wired this way. If that memory of 1994 feels more real than anything that happened last week, I want you to know something important. You're not broken. You aren't the problem, and you certainly aren't just forgetful. You are simply navigating the unique, dual-layered reality of being a Xennial, someone who spent their formative years standing on the bridge between two entirely different worlds. For a long time, you might have felt like you don't quite fit the relentless, high-speed pace of today, yet you're too deeply wired into the digital age to fully retreat into the analog past. That quiet sense of being misplaced or feeling like the world around you is moving at a rhythm that doesn't quite match your own is exactly what makes you who you are. You're about to feel very seen right now because your brain isn't failing you. It's actually protecting the depth of your experiences. You see, this isn't just about aging or technology moving too fast. It's about how your nervous system was calibrated during those years where the world was transitioning. When you find yourself craving the simplicity of a pre-notification life, it isn't just empty nostalgia. It's a valid human response to an environment that often conflicts with your natural, deeper wiring. Now, you might be wondering why this happens with such precision. Why does the way you think feel so distinct compared to everyone else? Researchers have actually studied this shift, and the terminology is surprisingly simple. Let's look at what the science says about this in-between feeling you've been carrying. You might be wondering if this is just simple nostalgia playing tricks on you. But neuroscience tells a very different and quite validating story. Psychologists often talk about what they call deep emotional encoding. Think of your brain as a high-fidelity archive. Back in 1994, life wasn't saturated with the constant, rapid-fire digital noise we deal with today. It was curated by the senses. When you lived through those years, your brain didn't have a constant feed of notifications fighting for your limited attention. It was focused. The hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for forming and storing memories, actually thrives on novelty and deep focus. Because the 90s were an era of rapid change and first-time experiences, your brain instinctively saved those moments with incredible intensity. Conversely, our modern-day existence is often filled with repetitive, low-impact information, scrolling, scanning, and reacting to fleeting updates. To protect you from burnout, your brain naturally categorizes most of this daily digital clutter as disposable. You aren't losing your memory. You're simply living in an era where your brain is being trained to view much of the present as temporary. It makes perfect sense why you'd hold on to 1994 so tightly. It's where your brain felt most engaged, present, and truly on. But knowing the why is only the beginning. To really understand why you feel this distinct, dual-layered sense of belonging, we have to look at the specific psychological pillars that define the Xennial experience. Let's break those down. To understand why 1994 feels so vivid compared to the blur of this morning, we have to look at the three psychological pillars that define the Xennial memory. It isn't just nostalgia, It's a specific way your brain was calibrated during a time of global transition. First is the novelty peak. Neuroscience tells us that our brains are efficiency machines. They tend to filter out the mundane to save energy. However, they prioritize firsts. In 1994, the world was handing you a brand new version of reality. The first time you heard the dial-up modem shriek, the first time you navigated a simple website, the tactile joy of physical media. These weren't just activities. They were high-emotion, high-novelty events. Your hippocampus, the brain's memory center, treats these first-time experiences like high-definition files, saving them with a level of detail that our current, repetitive digital routines simply don't trigger. You remember 1994 so well, because for your brain, that was the last time the world felt genuinely surprising. Second is the absence of documentation. We live in an era where we outsource our memories to the cloud. We take a photo to remember an event, which ironically signals to the brain that it doesn't need to work hard to store the memory itself. In 1994, there was no record button in your pocket. If you wanted to remember a moment, a late-night conversation, a summer evening, a specific feeling, you had to inhabit it. You were the primary archive, because you had to consciously focus and engage to hold on to those moments. They became a core part of your internal narrative. You didn't just observe your life. You lived it in real time, without a screen acting as a buffer. Third is the Hinge Effect. Xennials hold a unique psychological position. You are the last generation to remember the quiet of the pre-internet world and the first to fully navigate the digital explosion. This Hinge status creates a dual-layered sense of self. You understand the value of being unreachable, yet you possess the technical adaptability to thrive in the modern age. This contrast makes your memories feel more poignant because you are essentially two people in one, the analog child and the digital adult. Your brain constantly compares the two, which keeps those early memories active, sharp, and deeply meaningful. As we look at these layers, you might start to realize that this isn't about being stuck in the past. It's actually about recognizing the unique depth you bring to the present. You aren't just remembering a year. You're remembering a way of being that is quietly becoming a superpower. But how do we take that different feeling and turn it into something that makes you feel more confident in who you are today? Now, I want you to pause for a second and look at that feeling of being misplaced in the modern world. For years, you might have told yourself that this sense of disconnection was a weakness, that you were somehow falling behind or failing to keep up with the relentless pace of digital progress. You've likely felt that if you could just be a bit more like the generations behind you, you'd finally feel on track. But what if I told you that your discomfort isn't a sign of obsolescence? It's actually a sign of your greatest competitive advantage. You're living proof of a transition that only a handful of generations will ever truly experience. You possess the analog empathy of a world that understood patience, physical boundaries, and deep, singular focus. At the same time, you have the digital fluency to navigate the complexity of the future, while others are purely creatures of the digital stream, constantly reacting, constantly scrolling. You have an internal compass that tells you when something is superficial, when it's fake, and when it's genuinely worth your time. That in-between feeling you've been carrying is actually the ability to translate between two worlds. You see the patterns that others miss because you know what life looks like without the screen. You have a dual perspective that is becoming increasingly rare and, quite frankly, incredibly valuable. You aren't falling behind. You're the bridge. You are the one who understands why the world feels like it's speeding up, and you're the one capable of finding the quiet, grounded solutions that others are currently losing the ability to see. When you stop trying to fix your resistance to the modern, hyper-paced world and start viewing it as a protective mechanism for your own sanity, something shifts. You move from feeling like a relic of the past to being a pioneer of a more balanced future. And if you spend a long time feeling like you're simply the only one who thinks this way, I have something I want to share with you that might change the way you see your own story. I want you to really let this sink in. You're the last generation to know what it feels like to be completely, blissfully unreachable. You remember the sound of a doorbell ringing without a camera recording your face, and the quiet weight of a physical book in your hands before the world demanded you be always on. For a long time, the world may have told you that your preference for this kind of depth, your need for genuine, undigitized connection, was just you being old-fashioned or failing to adapt. But that isn't true. That longing you feel isn't a sign of weakness, it's your compass. Is your soul reminding you of what healthy, human-scale connection actually feels like? You aren't struggling to fit into the modern world because you're failing. You're struggling because you still carry the blueprint of what a truly lived-in life looks like. You remember the texture of the world before it was pixelated, and that memory is a gift. It allows you to guard the things that truly matter: your attention, your privacy, and your capacity for deep, undistracted thought. You've spent years feeling like you were living in the margins, trying to bridge a gap that no one else seemed to notice. But you aren't in the margins. You're the guardian of something essential. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to disconnect. You're allowed to hold onto the version of the world that made you feel most alive. It's time to stop apologizing for it and start protecting it, because this version of you is exactly what the world is missing. If this conversation made you feel a little less alone, or if you found yourself nodding along because you can still hear the static of that 1994 television, then you've found your people. We're building a community here for the Hinge generation, the overthinkers, the deep observers, and the Xennials who are learning to navigate this loud digital world without losing their analog souls. If you want to explore more about why your brain works the way it does, you'll probably find a lot of peace in our other deep dives. But before you go, let's do something small to bridge the gap. Tell me in the comments. What is that one specific high-definition memory from 1994 that still feels more real to you than this morning? Let's find each other in the stories we share. You're not broken. You're just wired for depth. And honestly, that's exactly what the world needs right now. I'll see you in the next video.